I stopped going to frolics. The whole district noticed within a week. The first frolic I did not go to. I told myself I was tired. That was true enough. I had been tired for months in the way I have tried to describe before. The bone-deep accumulated tiredness of a life lived entirely for other people, inside a structure that had no category for what I needed. But tired was also the only reason I could give that the community would accept without requiring further explanation. So tired was what I said when my neighbor came to the door the Thursday morning of the quilting frolic to ask if I was coming, and I said I was not feeling well, and she said she was sorry to hear it, and she left, and I closed the door and stood in my own kitchen in the quiet and felt something I had not felt on a Thursday morning in years. I felt the morning, just the morning, without the frolic inside it, without the 2 hours of preparation and the walk and the careful management of what I said and how I said it, and whether I was being the right kind of present. Just the kitchen and the light coming through the window, and the particular silence of a house where everyone has gone about their day and left you to yours. I stood there for a long time. Long enough that the feeling had a chance to become something I could recognize. It was not guilt, though that came later. It was not relief, exactly. It was more like the feeling of setting down something you have been carrying for so long that you had forgotten you were carrying it, and the absence of the weight is so unfamiliar that for a moment you cannot tell if you feel better or simply strange. My name is Miriam, and this is Miriam the Amish, the channel where I finally say the things my community would never allow me to say out loud. I grew up Old Order Amish in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and I left a few years ago. If you want to hear the truth about Amish life from someone who actually lived it, please subscribe, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. There is still so much I have not told you. Now let me explain what frolics are and what they mean inside an Old Order community, because the word carries a lightness in English that the thing itself does not entirely deserve. A frolic is a community work gathering. The word is old, carried over from the German fröhlich, joyful, and there is genuine joy in them. I want to be honest about that. They are the days when the community's best quality, its capacity for collective labor and genuine mutual care, shows itself most clearly. A quilting frolic brings the women of the district together to work on a quilt that might take one woman weeks alone, but takes a room full of women an afternoon. A barn-raising frolic is the men working together to put up a structure that would be impossible for a single family to build. A canning frolic fills a cellar for winter in a day. These gatherings are the community's infrastructure, the practical expression of the interdependence that makes plain life possible. They are also the primary social space for women in a world where other forms of social life are limited. The frolic is where information moves, where relationships are maintained, where the texture of belonging is woven and rewoven week by week. It is not optional in any meaningful sense. It is the community sustaining itself through you, and you sustaining yourself through the community, and the two things are so thoroughly intertwined that refusing one is refusing both. I had been going to frolics my entire life. From the time I was small enough to sit at my mother's knee and thread needles for the older women, to the years of my marriage when I was one of the primary organizers of the district's quarterly quilting gatherings. I had never missed one voluntarily. Illness, a difficult birth, a family emergency, those were the acceptable reasons for absence. Tiredness was borderline. Wanting to stand alone in my kitchen and feel the morning without anything inside it was not a category that existed. I missed the first frolic on a Thursday. By Saturday, 2 women had stopped by the house to check on me. Not intrusively, warmly, with genuine concern, and also with the particular attentiveness of people who understand that absence from a frolic is information about a household, and who feel a community responsibility to gather that information and assess it. They asked how I was feeling. They brought food. They sat for 20 minutes and talked about the frolic, who had been there, what had been worked on, what was coming up next. The conversation was an accounting of what I had missed, and an implicit reminder of what absence cost in terms of connection and standing and the ordinary flow of community life. I thanked them and told them I was feeling better, and they left, and I understood that the Saturday visits were not only kindness. They were the community taking my pulse. I missed the second frolic the following Thursday. This one I did not claim illness for. I simply did not go. My neighbor came to the door again that morning, and I told her I had too much to manage at home that day. She looked at me for a moment, with an expression I recognized as concern, but could not read further than that, and she said she hoped everything was all right, and she left. By that evening, 3 different women had found reasons to pass by the house, and 2 of them had knocked, and the conversations were warm and brief, and carried inside them the same careful pulse-taking as the Saturday visits the week before. The community had noticed. The community was responding, not yet with anything that could be named as pressure, with attention, sustained, affectionate, total attention. The third Thursday I did not go and did not answer when my neighbor knocked. I stood in the hallway and listened to her knock twice, and then listened to her footsteps retreat down the porch steps, and I stood there for a long time after that, feeling something that was complicated enough that I still do not have a single word for it. Relief and grief, and the particular loneliness of choosing your own absence from something that has been the structure of your belonging for your entire life. I want to stop here because the third Thursday is the Thursday everything changed in how the community engaged with my absence, and I want you to stay with me through what comes next. Please subscribe to Miriam the Amish, like this video, and turn on the notification bell, because what happened in the week after the third Thursday is something I have never described in full before, and it is the clearest picture I know how to give of how a community maintains itself through the bodies of the women who compose it. My husband was spoken to before I was. I had come to recognize this as the pattern, the way official concern always arrived through him first, so that his authority as head of household was confirmed, and his responsibility for my behavior was made clear, before any direct approach was made to me. He came home from wherever the conversation had happened, with a quietness that had weight in it, and he said that people were worried about me, and that he thought I should go to the next frolic. He did not say the bishop had suggested it. He did not need to. The quietness told me everything about where the suggestion had originated. The deacon came 2 days later. He was gentle. He said the community had noticed my recent absences from the frolics, and wanted me to know that if something was wrong, if there was something the church could help carry, that support was available. He said community participation was one of the ways a member stayed connected to the life of the faith, that the frolics were not just practical gatherings, but expressions of the mutual care that the ordnung called all members to practice. He said that a woman who withdrew from those gatherings withdrew from something essential. He did not say what would happen if the withdrawal continued. He did not need to. The visit itself was the message. My mother-in-law arrived unannounced on Saturday. She was a woman of few unnecessary words, and she used very few that day. She sat at my kitchen table and looked at me and said, "They are going to bring this to the bishop if you do not go next week." Then she drank the tea I had made and talked about her grandchildren for 20 minutes and left. I went the following Thursday. I sat with the other women around the quilt frame, and I stitched for 3 hours, and I talked about the things you talk about at a quilting frolic, other people's harvests and children and the coming season, and when it was over, I walked home in the afternoon light, and I thought about what had happened across those 4 weeks. What I had wanted was a Thursday morning. What I had been shown was the full architecture of what a Thursday morning cost. A woman who had left the community 2 years before me, someone I had found through the quiet channels available to people who were beginning to look for a way out, said something when I told her about the 4 Thursdays that I have carried since. She said, "The frolic is not where you quilt." She said it matter-of-factly, without drama, the way she said things she had already finished feeling strongly about and had arrived on the other side of. She said, "The frolic is where the community confirms that you are still inside it. Every woman who attends is telling the community she is still there. Every woman who does not is asking a question the community finds very uncomfortable." She said, "They were not coming to your door because they missed your stitching. They were coming because your absence was a question, and a community like that cannot leave a question unanswered." In therapy, I found language for what the 4 Thursdays had shown me. My therapist called it compulsory participation, the requirement embedded in certain community structures that members perform their belonging regularly and visibly, or risk having their belonging reclassified. She said that compulsory participation is different from genuine community, because genuine community can hold the absence of a member without treating the absence as a threat. She said, "A community that can only confirm your belonging through your continuous, visible presence is a community that does not actually trust your belonging at all. It trusts your performance of it. And when the performance stops, even briefly, even for a Thursday morning in your own kitchen, the community experiences it as instability that must be corrected." She said, "The visits to your door were not love. They were maintenance." I left the following year. The frolics continued without me, as they will continue without everyone who sits around them eventually. The quilts got finished. The cellars got filled. The community sustained itself through the women who remained, and the women who remained sustained themselves through each other, in the way they always had, and the way they will, long after everyone who knew me there has forgotten the particular sound of my footsteps on the porch. What I took with me from those 4 Thursdays was something I had not expected to find in an absence. I found that I could stand in my own kitchen and feel the morning, and that the morning was enough. Not because community is not real or not valuable, because it is, because I miss it still in ways I am not finished grieving, but because a community that requires your continuous performance to confirm your worth inside it is not giving you belonging. It is leasing it to you on terms it can revoke at any time, and you are paying for it with every Thursday morning you give away. If you have ever skipped something you were supposed to attend and felt the weight of what the absence cost land on you within days, not through any explicit punishment, but through the sustained attention of people who needed you to come back, I see you. If you have ever stood in the quiet of your own morning and felt something that was almost peace, and then felt the guilt arrive behind it like a second weather, I see you. If you have ever been told in 100 gentle ways that your presence was required and your absence was a problem, and wondered why belonging felt so much like an obligation you had never agreed to, I see you. You were not antisocial. You were not faithless or cold, or failing the people who needed you. You were a person who needed one Thursday morning in your own kitchen, and the fact that the community could not give you that without treating it as a crisis is not a reflection of what you owed the community. It is a reflection of what the community believed it owned of you. You were not a resource, you were a person, and the Thursday morning was yours. If this story reached something in you, please subscribe to Miriam the Amish, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss what comes next. There is still so much I have not said. Until next time, choose your freedoms wisely. They might just save your life.